and so now I'm saving this. It's going to build. It'll take probably a couple minutes to build. When it's finished building, I basically take this over, dump it in Google Drive, and then Chris can take it and install it on his arcade platform. By the time we're done with this, our goal is not to have a Windows operating system on whatever hard drive that we're using. Instead, we'd like to have a Linux operating system on there because as we build these arcade machines, we don't want to have to purchase a Windows license for every arcade machine. Basically, another way to cut costs. And I know that GameMaker will actually export to Linux platform. So we're hoping to do a similar type setup for, but instead of using Windows, use Linux. But there are a couple of things we have to get in place in order to make sure that happens. Right now, we're running up against some headaches with how quick the refresh rate, basically, of the old CRT monitors. So those monitors, those old arcade monitors, refresh at 15 kilohertz, and so you have to make sure you have the right drivers in place on Windows or Linux to work with whatever video card you have. As I understand it, Chris, am I speaking to that correctly?
Yeah. Really, it's complicated to get modern hardware to want to get to the right refresh rate. So we have some workarounds that we use. But yeah, as Brad was saying, we eventually want this to all be open source in terms of the operating system, so there's no additional cost with the operating system, and so that when other developers want to develop for this hardware, they don't have to purchase the license for the OS.
Yep, that's right. Yep. Okay, so this is almost finished building. As soon as I'm finished with it, I will, since we're waiting for this also, I'll go ahead and commit my changes. So back to Git, and I'll make sure that you guys can see what I'm doing in Git here. I'll take what I've got, so I can just run Git status. I can see what has been changed and potentially what has been added. I have added some files, so I got to run Git add period, which is basically add anything that is new. Then Git commit -a. Allows me to commit everything that's been modified or added for update on the branch. I'll put a note here that just says updates for ticket SC6, which is katana impact deflection, and write it, quit it. I use Vim to make those commit updates, and then once that's finished, I can see that everything's been committed. I need to push it to the branch that I'm working on. When you run git push, if you don't have an automatic setup for what the origin point is going to be, you have to run set upstream origin SC-6 to tell it, put this in the git repo on the SC-6 branch, so that if I ever go to see what's in that branch, I would then be able to say git pull origin SC-6, and that would allow me to pull that branch in to whatever branch I'm working on. So though the work on this branch is not complete because we have a couple more updates to make, just a few, I went ahead and pushed just as a standard best practice. But in the meantime, back over to what's happening. I'm going to go ahead and go over to Google Drive, and I'll let you guys kind of follow along here. Google Drive, our process is to just go drop it in executable folder that we have. I can now upload that most recent version. Okay, it's uploading 63 megs. While that's uploading, I'm going to go ahead and export the keyboard version. We have a few testers. Guys, welcome, welcome, welcome. Today is Skycurser daily number 12. And today is mainly going to be a no-cam stream. Also, it's going to be a silent stream here in just a little bit. But since I covered a lot yesterday, I just wanted to make sure that I gave us some time to pick up where we left off from yesterday, because I did get a little bit of an opportunity to go back and work on a couple things after the stream yesterday. So I, as you saw me at the end of the day, I was in the process of trying to create and work on explosions properly, and I was just having some issues that I couldn't figure out, and finally came across some really good realizations last night, and I want to walk you through those so that you can see some of the progress that we made. And I'm not entirely finished with the explosions animation yet. I'm going to be working on that on stream tonight, but I think we're in a good place with this, and I've got some clarity on how I want to move forward with explosions. But it took me a while to get to that point last night. As I was working, I basically needed to kind of see what was going on, because I thought everything that I had in place was working the way it should be working, but every time I would go in game and take a look at it, it just wasn't behaving the way I expected it to. I would either have an error, or the explosion animation would just not happen at all. So I tried to figure out what was going on there, and then when I got off stream, I also started thinking how I could consolidate all the explosions and how that would make the most sense in terms of just kind of trying to get everything in place so that all of the explosions could work off of the same, basically same object or same parent. But I first, so the way the conclusion I came to last night was that the explosion itself, because we destroy the object explosion and the object blood explosion when the animation ends, we can't do all of our work inside of that object. So we either needed a parent object, which doesn't really make sense in this case to have those work off of, or a controller object. And so I started working off of a controller object yesterday at the end of the day, and so now the controller is going to create objects as necessary, specifically the object explosions, and we'll basically handle everything kind of the way you know, the code that we wrote yesterday was valuable because I'm still using it, but that code is now in a controller. So I'll show that to you right now. So let's go look at the controller. Controller explosions. And we've got a create event here, which calls a script, and that calls script controller explosions init. I set a few variables here, mainly one variable, and then I have a couple of debug statements, and I'm going to get into that too, because that was a big breakthrough that I had yesterday, and I'll get into that in just a minute. And then I have this explosions animation, which occurs from the step event on the explosions. So the step event just calls the animations script every step, and again, our room has 60 frames per second, so 60 steps per second. And in this in particular, it takes a look at if the argument .type is set, and if it is set, then it begins to run the code inside of here. And the reason why we have this check is because right when we initialize the specific object that we're going to use now, the benefit of going through this controller is that I can use object underscore explosion. Let's go look at this. I can use object underscore explosion right now, or object underscore blood underscore explosion. I can use either one of these, pass them through here. So I'm trying to set what type is going to happen when when I call a specific object. And I'll show you where I'm doing that in just a minute. So, and then when we get over here, we check to see if that type has been set yet or not. If and only if it has been set, then we run the code inside of the step event. Until then, we just keep checking here every step until we return a true. Now, the other piece that I was working on, let me see if I can find this really quick. And it would probably be under script. Let me go look at this explosion object really quick. Object blood explosion. We just have the animation end on there. We have the object controller explosions on here. Again, we do the explosions in it. We do the step event, but we also need to see where we're calling this, and I remember where it is now. It's we're calling this script instance create vars specifically whenever enemy 2 dies. So enemy 2, and we had a lot of this controller code. So out of here, we had a lot of this code right here in script enemy 2 die. Now we call this script instance create vars, and this was something really that I got really excited that I wanted to talk to you guys about today. This is one thing, and the other thing is kind of the debugging system that we now have in place that allows us to see what's going on a little bit better. And of course, this debugging system I'm going to make better as time moves on, just so that the data that gets output to screen is definitely valuable to us. So what's the purpose of this? Notice here I'm creating the controller explosions, but the problem is I want to pass in some variables to this controller so that I can have those variables available on the step event of this controller, because right now I don't know exactly which explosion I'm going to send through it. I should say this controller doesn't know which explosion is going to get sent through it until I pass it in, and I can pass some variables in. So I have these variables that we worked through already. Remember, we worked through this a little bit yesterday. I changed up the way I did this, and I put them into a data structure, and I'll get into that here in just a minute. But we had those variables top, right, bottom, left, acronym trouble, TRBL. And then current explosion, the max explosion counter, the depth, the type, and the type is set. Just check on stream chat here, make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, I think we're good right now. So, so we have these variables that we're actually setting to this variable. So each one of these variables is getting set to this data structure, and vars is the variable that I'm creating to assign to this data structure. And I'm using a data structure map. Now, let's go look at what GameMaker says about this, and I'll pull this up so you can see my monitor here. Do that real quick. So, DS map create, basically GameMaker has two two types that you can use that are very helpful, that behave, I should actually say they have about 4 different types, but 2 of them make the most sense to use frequently. There's a thing called a DS list and another type called a DS map. A DS list is basically very similar to an array if you're used to other programming languages, except it's basically a one-dimensional array. So you can say, array at the 0 is this this key, 0 obviously being the key. Array at the 0 equals this value. Array at the 1 equals this value. Array at the 2, which again is the key, equals this value. So that is kind of what the DS list is for GameMaker, but they also have a DS map, which is basically it's similar to a hash if you're familiar with Ruby. It's similar to a multi-dimensional array if you're familiar with something like PHP or other programming languages that allow for multi-dimensional arrays. So in this case, let's go look at our code. I can take something like you know, a key and a value and assign them to this array. Top is -20, set it to here. Right is -10, set it to this array. Bottom is 20, set it to this array. So this key is this value, this key is this value, this key is this value. And in this way, I can pass in all of these variables when I'm actually instantiating the object. Now, does it hit the moment that the object is instantiated? No, not quite. But let's go look at script instance create vars. So here's what happens in here. I'm passing in this. I went searching on forums last night trying to figure out how I could do this, because from what it sounds like, GameMaker used to have something where you could almost you know, instantiate an object, do an instance create, and then right after that you could do something like instance var add, and then you could pass a key and a value. And what that would do, you would pass a key and a value, but you would also add it to an object. So you would say instance var add object, and then you would have a key and a value. And what that would do is it would set a property on the object with that specific value. And well, I went searching through all the documentation that's available with the current version of GameMaker, and that is no longer around. So I'm pretty sure some of that was some legacy methods or functions that GameMaker used to have available. So I had to figure out how can I do something like this, and everybody. I shouldn't say everybody, but there were a lot of people who were asking this question that didn't really have a good answer for this. And I feel like I came up with a fairly decent solution for this. And it's not 100% flawless yet, but I'm still working on this script right here. So if we're looking at, I'm going to kind of break this out so I can see everything. If we're looking at this set right here, I'm setting this map, or this basically multi-dimensional array, and I'm passing it into my method. So I'm passing in 3 arguments: x, y, x, y object, and then my variables. Now, why am I passing x and y here? Well, similar to the method, you know, if you're familiar with GameMaker instance create, you would pass in an x value, a y value, and the object that you're trying to instantiate, right? Object controller explosions. And then that way that instantiates your object, and it's at that point it's almost like you can't add any additional objects except for in the create event. Well, because this is a controller, and again, I don't know, you know, this controller doesn't know which type is what type of object or explosion is going to be passed into it yet. It's kind of clueless until I pass it in. Then you know, we need to be able to pass in some variables. So here's that, basically that array is getting passed in, which again I'm identifying right here, that DS map. And then I'm saying, hey, guess what? This is what I just wrote a minute ago. We're going to do an instance create. We're going to take argument 0, which was the x value, argument y, again, argument 1, which is the y value, and argument 2, which is actually the object that we wanted to create. Well, from that point, all within this script, we want to go ahead and start assigning variables to this object. So we loop through the array. First of all, we find a key. Now, here's one thing that is a little bit of a headache that I'm noticing about GameMaker. GameMaker basically cannot do a for each, where you could say for each key value, or if you're familiar with something like Ruby, you could say here's my array dot each, and that would basically loop through everything. Instead, you have to do the iterative for loop. I equals 0, I is less than the size of the array, and then I plus plus. But then I can't just call out, you know, this. What, you know, if I normally did something like this in regular programming, I would just say, okay, at this point, I'm looking for. I'm even trying to think of how to do this. Argument 3, which is again our DS map. Argument 3 at the I equals I did that a little bit wrong. My value equals argument 3 at the I, right? And I is kind of like your key in this case, but my key isn't really 0. I don't want 0. I want to actually know what the key is so that I can set it to a property. I want to use that key and set it to a property of the instance that I create, and then pull out the argument. And this is the way that GameMaker allows you to loop through a DS map and pull out the value of something in that array. So the other piece to this is you kind of have to use this helper method, DS map find first, and this will get the very first record in the DS map as GameMaker has it saved, and that is your key. So you can check then at that point, you know, what key am I using? What I tried to do initially was just kind of keep that if statement out of there and say instance.key equals argument 3 at the key, which would be, hey, set this as a property, whatever the value of key is, set it as a property of instance, and also get the value of you know, that key inside of the array. Well, GameMaker doesn't quite recognize what to do with this. So later, when I'm in my explosions folder where I'm checking for argument 0.type is set, because it doesn't translate .key by default, I kind of have to I've come up with a temporary solution. I'm hoping to find a better solution than this, but this will work for now. I know what variables I'm going to pass in. I can basically do a switch and then a key, and then I can do something like case, and if my case's type is set, then I'm going to set this to type is set. So I basically translate it for GameMaker. Otherwise it would be just basically like taking this right here and setting it like this, but GameMaker just doesn't know what to do with that. So you kind of have to translate it for GameMaker, but at that point, you know, it's like, well, did we get anything out of that? Did we get any value? Well, yeah, because we're going to be able to reuse this controller later on and pass more objects through here. But the great thing was basically we solved the problem of not being able to pass variables when initializing an object, and I think that basically we did that here. And then at this point, you know, this is pointless. I don't need this. And then you have to set the iterator to point to the next key, so that the next time it comes through the loop, it's looking at a different key. Huh? Yeah. So basically you have to point this to a different key so that the next time it goes through the loop. So I'm going to go through here and I'm going to actually set up, you know, each one of the switch cases, and it will basically be based on the variables that I passed in. I will set a top, a right, a bottom, a left, you know, all these will be set basically, so that when it gets over to the trying to look for it here, when it gets over to this, it can recognize when I set it correctly, like I just showed you, it can then recognize this, but we also needed to recognize these other variables. So that's where I'm at with that. But the other piece that I wanted to point out was the debugging that I worked out. So in getting involved with the DS map, I also started looking at the documentation for DS list. So let's go look at that really quick. So inside of Object Controller Persistent, which is persistent across all my rooms, I've set some global variables. Inside of here, I run script reset game, which also sets some variables. I run reset game periodically, so it's nice to have it in a script. And then I have global.message debug. Right here is, this is going to be helpful, especially if I turn on debug mode. Now when we ship this, obviously debug mode gets turned off and nobody can really output anything even if they want to. But we use this DSList create. This is what I was talking about a little bit ago. This is kind of like that one-dimensional array where the key is an index number. So again, the list would start at 0, It's like an array. It would be like an array starting at 0. When you add something to it, it increments that key to 1, increments to 2, 3, and so on. But then you can set a value to that list or array. So what I'm doing here is ds_list create, and we just looked at this code for a minute, but ds_list create, it creates a new list returning its ID. Let's go look at the helper functions. And there's probably something that helps us out a little bit better than this. I'm looking for it. Kind of looking for data structures. Let's try this. dsmap exists. I'm looking for the data list. Let's try data list instead of structures. Nope. Here we go. Let's look here. So you can do something like create, and then you can add values to your list with ds_list add. When you want to loop through them, you do something kind of similar, and let's go look at that real quick. It's in the same object, but it's in the draw. When we're trying to look through everything that we've added to this, we can say, does this data structure exist? Basically, it will exist if debug mode is on. And once you find it, loop through it. So, you know, similar iterator for loop, I equals 0, I is less than the size of the list, I++, that will get us from the 0 index all the way through all of our items inside of this array. And then you can then refer to what's in the array with this terminology right here. So I'm referring to my ds_list name, and then I have the open square bracket, close square bracket, and then there's a pipe right inside the open square bracket, a space, and then the iterator, which is the index that the current iterator is on. So the index starts at 0, goes through 1, or goes through whatever the number of items in this message debug. I'm also then positioning the Y position of the next message that comes out a little bit further down. Once one message gets generated, the next message will get generated a little bit further down. So where I'm putting it is in the X position that I've set by default, and then I'm incrementing basically this Y position as I'm also going through these. So that's and then that allows me to do something like this throughout my code, where I've got this nice little script. Debug message, that's what DM stands for, debug message, and I'll just kind of put that right here. Script debug message, right? And then I can do something like ds_list find index, and if it is equal to -1, then we can add it. So what this does right here is it sees if whatever I passed in, the string to add is based off of the string that I passed in, and it's checking the list, and if it finds -1, that means it does not exist yet. And I'll just put a note here so that's easy for anybody else or myself to see that. And then does not exist yet, ds_list add. This will add it to the global debug message, and I do an uppercase because right now the font that I'm using has only characters in uppercase. I can of course use a different font and do lowercase characters, but since I was just trying to get all this connected and working together, I just uppercase the characters. And so now as I go through, I can just take script, debug message, and then just pass in a string. And script debug message, pass in a stream, and then that little script DM handles everything and does the key piece again, which is ds_list add, which adds to that array, incrementing as we go. Okay, so we're in a good spot here. I wanted to show you the output of this so you can take a look at it. And I'll leave this going here. And I think I'm going to comment this out for a minute just so you can see the output and not see anything break. Okay, so the debug message will appear on the right hand side. I think we're in a good place. I'm just going to go ahead and play this right away. And then as soon as I'm finished showing you this, I'm going to switch over to silent mode, and feel free to ask questions. I'll interact with you, and if there's a tough question, I'll just hop on the mic and speak with you and just make sure you understand whatever it is that I'm going over if you have questions. Okay, going in game. It's still compiling. We're almost finished with the compile. It's always slow the very first time. Okay, here we go.
Mission 1, Death at Dusk. Go!
Okay, so you're going to see the output of the message. I've got it set to output, especially whenever we are attacking the floating eyeball, which is enemy 2. Enemy 2 dies. Of course, we have the bug right here. Just take care of this bug real quick. Copy the message. Always copy the message and then take a look at it so I can debug it. So let's do that. So it's having a problem with line 22. Let's see, line 22 of our other script, which is script instance create vars. It doesn't like the output of this guy right here. I think I know why. I think it's having a problem with this one. So I think we should do this. Here's the key, output the key, and then output the value that's in the array at the key. So that was just something I had changed last night, but I hadn't changed it back. And actually, here's where I had that. I'll just go ahead and yeah, since I've got the key here and then the value, I should say key plus, and then go pipe space pipe value, so that we could see key and then value. So we'll see them both together here. Play. Try this again real quick. Let it compile. Alright, it's almost finished compiling.
Mission 1, Death at Dusk. Go!
So there's the debug. Very, very helpful, useful information. Now, I'll do a lot of things with this a little bit later, but notice the output of some of this. About where Skycurser is right now along this line. Key, current explosion, value equals 0, and then a little bit below that, script init ID. You can see that create ID matching the init ID. I have those items set in a different file. Here I can see the key max explosion counter is about 3. Key bottom value is 20. help as I'm debugging. But I'll do some things later so that I basically let that basically turn into kind of a streaming data so that some of that stuff begins to disappear as I'm still interacting with the game. But now it's in a really good place where I can just kind of continue to add to output as necessary as I'm going through. Okay, so that is the extra debugging that I got really excited about working out yesterday. I'm going to spend more time on that a little bit later. I got to keep moving forward with the Griffin special here. But I think I've kind of gone over everything and brought you up to speed with where I moved to. Again, I changed everything over to a controller, and I am passing variables into the controller when I create it, and then I'm going to handle them here with the switch statement so that when it actually goes through, basically again, I'm creating object controller explosions. On create, it calls the init script, which is just sets one variable. Again, I'll show this to you really quick. Sets one variable, type is set, and then of course it shows a little bit of a debug messaging here. I don't need this anymore, so I'm just going to do away with this debug messaging. So it basically sets one variable, and in the step event, it then tries to run the explosion animation. Well, the problem is by the time it gets here, right after it gets created, the very first step or the very first couple of steps, we're still waiting for the script which creates the instance of the controller to finish setting these other variables. So we're still waiting for this line right here to occur multiple times with all the other variables. So while we're waiting, we don't want the what's in the step event to execute. So we put this little helper here, this type is set. We set it to false, and then when we finally get that variable set in the script, we set type is set to true, and everything else by that point should be set, and then everything can come into the step and execute as expected. So I'm in the process right now of currently spending the time to make sure all these other variables get set properly, and then I'll do some testing from there. But I think we're in a good spot right now. I'm going to go ahead at this point. I'm going to basically go radio silent. I'll still be available to talk via chat. So if you have a question, please just ask it. I'll stop and try to explain and work through something. But we're in a good spot. I'm just going to keep moving forward, keep my head down, and I'll hop on the mic if I need to answer any questions. So.
Skycurser. Mission 1. Death at dusk. Go! Mission 1. Death at dusk. Go! Skycurser. Mission 1. Death at dusk. Go! Mission 1, Death at Dusk. Go! Mission 1. 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 Death at dusk. Go! Skycurser. Skycurser. Mission 1. Death at dusk. Go! Mission 1. Death at dusk. Go! Skycurser. Mission 1. Death at dusk. Go! Mission 1. Death at dusk. Go! Skycurser. Mission 1. Death at dusk. Go! Skycurser. Mission 1. Death at dusk. Go!
Okay guys, if you're just joining me, I am about to hop off for the evening. I've been working for about 2 hours. I normally, when I stream from about 8 or 8:30 to 10. I've been working on improving the blood explosion effect on multiple enemies. And I've been trying, the last 2 nights here, I've been trying to go about this in a way that I think should work with GameMaker, but it seems like GameMaker just doesn't want to play nicely alongside me as I'm trying to do this. So I think I'm going to have to tackle this a completely different way than I've been trying to tackle it. I thought I was on a breakthrough for GameMaker, specifically because GameMaker doesn't allow you to pass variables in when you initialize an object or an instance of an object. And I thought I found a workaround for that where I could actually create a script that I could pass variables or an array into a script and then instantiate an object and initialize it from that script that had that array passed into it of all the variables. It feels like GameMaker's fighting me on this, and I'm not exactly sure why, because I think that it should be seeing what I'm doing and understand, and I'm even trying to help it as much as I can understand it, but it just doesn't want to recognize the variables that I'm setting in this script instance create vars. So, but I will. I'm trying to get all this in order for MGC. We're going to MGC starting. We'll be there on April 11th and 12th. I think we'll even be there April 10th in the evening. But thanks for joining us this evening. If you like what you see, bop that follow button. Otherwise, check us out on Twitter and YouTube and Tumblr. That's where we post all of our stuff. Even all of our Twitch streams are posted there. So thanks again, guys. This is Brad on the Skycurser dev team. I hope to see you soon.